Good morning, everyone. Welcome, everyone here, and well Zooming, and well Facebooking, and YouTubing, whichever platform you are able to connect to this very special occasion to sit still and find our mind at a good place to focus our good attention without getting distracted and become troubled by the very wrong attention. So this morning we're going to do the prayers first, and then I'll lead you through three slots of 10 minutes meditation. Different techniques, all of them have same purpose, that is to fix your attention one pointedly and try to stay with that holding of your attention and calmly stay in that state of mind without losing your attention, without being distracted. And after the meditation, then I will start today a series of talk focused on the very holy life of the Buddha, which is very important to know. We are approaching Sagadawa, or the sacred month of highlighting Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and passing away, starting, according to Tibetan Buddhist calendar, on Wednesday, the start of Sagadawa, first of the fourth lunar month, which is very sacred month to do anything virtuous, particularly in respecting the Buddha's infinite qualities and wisdom. So I'm going to do that for the next few Sundays. So thank you everyone joining. Put your hands together, and we're going to do the refuge and 4 immeasurables 3 times each, during which we renew our devotion, our commitment, how much safer and better we are when we have the Buddha and his teachings like a guide. It can never go wrong. So we are renewing our commitment. When we do that, we are able to practice kindness to fellow sentient beings, not only those who are nice to us, but even very opposite to us. We realize kindness and calmness is the only best response. So we renew the commitment to practice loving kindness, compassion, equanimity, tolerance, understanding, non-judgment, and just acceptance. Things change so quickly by doing this. You don't have to do much. You just practice this. And that is really a refuge. Oyenda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Haitere Vijaya Haitere Bhavaja Ajivendala Ajare Buddha Haitere Enda Buddha Dhamma Sangha Haitere Vijaya Haitere Bhavaja Ajivendala Ajare Buddha Haitere and Buddha Dhamma Sangha Haitere Vijaya Bhavaja Ajivendala Ajare Buddha happiness and the cause of happiness may they be free from suffering cause of suffering. May they never run the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from judgment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness, and the cause of happiness, may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering, may they never from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. May all beings have happiness, and the cause of happiness, may they be free from suffering, and the cause of suffering, may they never from the happiness that knows no suffering. May they dwell equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to those near and far. So I'll lead you a few minutes before each section of the meditation. During the first section, keep your attention to your posture, that you sit still, you observe 4 stillness. First is stillness of all things around you. I'm sure you have secured your room to be nothing but only your meditation happens. Observing the stillness around you. Second stillness is your own posture. Keep the back straight, hands on your lap in a meditative gesture. Elbows relax, as are the shoulders. Keep the spine very straight, but not stiff. Chin slightly tucked in. Lips, mouth, teeth relax. Tongue slightly curled inside the upper teeth to avoid wetness and dryness. Eyes half open, looking straight on the tip of your nose, on the floor, without blinking your eyes. No shutting your eyes. Have a peaceful, soft, loving and kind and serene gaze. Have a sense the single hair from your crown is pulling you towards the ceiling. Use your attention to keep this very positioning of the body as you scan upwards, just like that, or as you reverse from the crown. Then turn the temple of your forehead, gaze of the eyes, your jaw all relax, chin slightly tucked in, shoulders balanced, spine straight, hands on the lap, 2 thumbs gently touching below the navel, your feet cross in a sitting posture. This is the mindfully positioning the posture, holding the stillness. You've got to also know that by doing and positioning this way, you are harmonizing the 4 subtle elements. The faith and confidence with which you sit still is grounding the earth element, without being too stiff or rigid, but balance, and the whole posture is watering and improving the circulation to quench the thirst of life by watering your life's garden, the balance. Keeping the back straight and very aware is firing the right effort to burn the calories of laziness and idleness. Having a clear and lightness in the head and the mind is oxygenating. In this way, you're mindfully sitting, you knowingly appreciate the harmonizing of the 4 elements. As you scan up and down, you check and correct any posture that is getting, losing its composure, slowly improve. If it's a bit stiff, slowly relax. If it's sloppy, exert the effort to straighten the back, bring the softness and wakefulness in the gaze of the eyes, without drifting to dullness or distraction. And feel all the qualities of stability, balance, awareness, and insight. With this stillness of the posture, next stillness is the gaze of the eyes. Not moving or blinking your eyes. Have a soft, peaceful gaze. And the 4th stillness is awareness, to keep all the above with meticulous scanning up and down. Take a couple of moments of mini break after 2-3 minutes, and then again come back, calmly sit in the correct posture. As you're scanning up and down, detect and check any parts that need improving. If the neck is drooping too low or back slouching, slowly straighten the back. Bring a softer and wiser gaze in the eyes. Make it interestingly engaging for the mind to be guarding the posture in the sitting meditation. Calmly holding the posture as it is. Now during the second part, we focus attention to follow the incoming breath. When we inhale consciously, do the inhalation knowingly. Think what you're bringing in with the breath is positive energy, courage, love, discipline, peace. Whatever positivity comes to your mind, just bring that with the in-breath and see the wide energy, the oxygen, and then feel inspired with this mindfully inhale. Then as you hold and permeate the breath in the lungs, follow the breath that permeates and floods through your lungs and whole body. See it soothing and spreading, flooding your whole 72,000 channels. Feel the red blood cells floods and rejuvenate and make you feel re-energized. And then as you slowly exhale, watch the outgoing breath. With that goes your tiredness, your tension, your worries, your suffering, your wrong thoughts. Just breathe out with the carbon, dark energy leaving the body and feel relieved. And do that as one round, and then do the next. As soon as you do the exhalation, mentally count at 2. Do the next one even more carefully. Do the inhalation, see what you're inhaling, know, feel. Likewise, as you hold the breath, permeate, soothe, rejuvenate. Then as you exhale, let go, set yourself free. 3. And the next rounds, 4. In this way, do as many rounds in forward counting. Mentally count at the end of each round of breath. You stay very fixed with attention. Mentally say in when you're inhaling. And then know, see and feel what you're inhaling. And then mentally say hold or permeate. Know, see and feel what this flooding of the oxygen is happening in the body. And then mentally say out. As you exhale, know, see and do and feel what you're letting go. Very comprehensively. And then count the number without losing the count. Try to do as high a number as you say up to 21. And if you succeed to do all the way up to 21 without losing the count, that's fine. But even if you do not succeed to do as many, but need to take a rest for just a couple of seconds, do so, and then continue. Calmly, one-pointedly, do the forward counting of qualified round of breathing. By holding the stillness of the room, the posture, the gaze of eyes, and most importantly, watching, counting qualified rounds of breath. relishing the calmness and stillness by focusing one's attention one pointedly. During this third part, we will do the same rounds of breath, but increase the sharpness of our concentration. It's called super qualified attention. So the attention and the resolution is sharper. So you do the same rounds of breath, but do reverse counting. You start from the highest number, say 21 or 50, and then each rounds of breath has not only each facets of the mindfulness doing, knowing, seeing, feeling as you inhale, but with higher resolution of the clarity and the depth and the concentration. Try to improve by way of seeing, by way of feeling, following the breath, spreading into your tissues and fibers and muscles and joints, bringing out all the tense and dense energy in them as you breathe out. So you increase the function of your super qualified round breathing that you do reverse counting. Starting from 21, and then 20, and 19, without losing the count. Holding the stillness of all kinds, particularly awareness to follow and then count the rounds of breath in reverse order. intelligent, hybrid position of it, Dharma, Agrela, Goma, Ego. So, thank you for everybody being very diligent and being able to sit like this in a very good disciplined way, that to focus your attention calmly, one-pointedly, without physically losing the posture, mentally without losing the concentration. You're actually able to tame and control your mind from drifting away. If it is drifting away, you slowly bring it what you are attending to. If you're going dull and being not sort of sinking your mind, you slowly bring it back, because as you're scanning the posture, as you do the deliberate counting forward and reverse counting, knowing which is what you're doing, and learning to stay very present, will greatly train your mind, train your brain, change your mindset on various aspects of life's perspectives that previously are deluded, that are frustrated, that are troubled, that are scattered, that are negative. All of these things will be calmed. It's like a carpenter planing the wood, or the person who makes arrow from bamboo. He's slowly, cutting away and chipping away the pieces he doesn't want, and then makes a beautiful, sharp arrow. Likewise, meditator is minding his own thoughts by learning to fix his attention mindfully. And so if you do regularly with a good discipline at your home, as well as in groups like this, we do the here now every Sunday. It's just question is whether now actually we are open, so people shouldn't really shy away. People are still shying away because of the COVID-19. We still have a much larger audience in YouTube and Facebook than actually people present. So actually sitting with other people is a very good discipline, because you are sitting with other people, their stillness, their discipline, or at least they're also trying as much as you are, will greatly boost your confidence, because otherwise you might move when you feel like you lose your point of concentration. You don't time your session, you don't sub-session your session, you don't take mini break within your session, because you're so uncontrolled, undisciplined. But with groups like this, or when we do retreat, like 2 days or 10 days, which we do quite often, and that's where people actually learn to sit still, to do meditation. Buddha said 6 years, and then attain enlightenment. And the Buddha wasn't this one who kind of sort of became enlightened just without effort, He wasn't someone who parachuted from enlightenment and to the world and do the show how he enlightened. He gave up desire. He gave up attachment. He gave up indulgence. He gave up fighting, craving, and being a king involves all fighting. Being a king involves all the policing of all the troublemakers, and you have to arrest those people. You have to lock them away. You have to do all sorts of things, and he didn't want to do any of that. All of that victory, all of that I'm in power. So today onwards, we're going to talk about life of the Buddha. Of course, we won't be able to discuss all aspects of life in one session, so we're going to go over a couple of sessions. Historical Buddha is a Buddha who was actually a human being who was born as a Prince Siddhartha in India. 2,565 years ago. So that's bit over 600 before Christ came. Before Christianity. I don't know. So how was the world like? They think the world didn't exist before 2021. Can you imagine? There was a completely different world that already existed according to in ancient history. So anyway, so I'm going to talk about first 3 episodes in life of the Buddha today. Buddha's life is divided in 12 episodes. So first 3 concerns with what we call himself observing, making 5 observations from the Tushita heaven. Tushita heaven is where Buddha was already born before he came to the world. We call Ganden in Tibetan. He was already reigning Buddha in the Tushita heaven as the Shwetaketu. And then when he observed his timing, that he was going to be the 4th Buddha. Before the Shakyamuni Buddha, there were already 3 Buddhas. And he was the 4th Buddha, and timing of his coming to the world was when average human beings lived about 100 years life expectancy, so it is said. And so he made 5 observations. Timing was then, and the country was what we call Jambudvipa. Jambudvipa is our Earth, because only our Earth is the only other 12 continents that has human beings living on planets. There are 12 planets, and our Jambudvipa is one of the 4 big continents. So he chose to come to the world of Jambudvipa, and then he checked his caste or race in which he was going to be born. Remember, India is a hugely caste-orientated place. Particularly those days, you have to be born in the right family to be able to do anything. So he chose the Shakya clan. Then next one is, so that's the timing, the world, and the country, and then the mother. He chose the mother. Her mother was Mayandevi. He chose Mayandevi. To become a Buddha's mother, you have to have earned a lot of merit. So Mayandevi was the queen of King Shuddhodana. And Mayandevi was a daughter of Super Buddha from the Devadaha. She was married to him, and so. But Buddha, as a Shwetaketu, when he made observation from Tushita, he made sure that he conceived as her child when she had only left, 10 months and 7 days left of her life. So he deliberately chose that. We'll talk about it later. And so he conceived, and when he conceived, this is Mahayana teaching, according to Mahayana Buddhism. The Theravada Buddhism do not talk about Buddha making those observations and things like that. I don't know how they say it differently, but they just say he was born. That's it, So they don't talk about observation. This is interesting when the Buddha observing where he's going to be born, when, and to whom, and so on. I mean, we also karmically make that. We also have made choice of our parents, and karmically chosen. We don't have omniscient ability to choose, but we also have karmically chose our parents, our country, or when, and so on. And so Buddha is the enlightened one. Of course, consciously chose mother and the place and so on. And anyway, so when the Maya Devi had the dream, amazing dream, she had amazing dream, and one of the most important aspects of the many dreams was that she, as she was sleeping, she dreamt that a huge white elephant, and a white elephant doesn't exist in the world, Usually most elephants are black, White elephant. And with 6 tusks, a big white elephant with 6 tusks entered into her womb in the dream, And then she felt that as the elephant entered in her womb, she felt so peaceful and blissful, and she felt honored by the world, and she felt lifted in the air, in the heaven by the world, and everybody, showering her flowers and giving her honor and respect and so on. And when she woke up, she couldn't help but tell her dream to her husband, Shuddhodana. And Shuddhodana's husband was delighted to hear. He definitely knew his wife is a queen, A queen is expecting a child, It's all queens, so kings have to have a baby, And so when this dream was told, he couldn't believe his ears, and he quickly asked all the local wise people and soothsayers and various people consulted, and everyone said she has conceived a very special child, and who will be great king. Of course, most of them will say that. Of course, father's king. You can't say he's going to be a fisherman, So it's a very silly thing to think they actually forecast he will be a great king. But one guy, he said, he will either be a king or he will be a mendicant. If he become a mendicant, means monk, then he will become enlightened. If he become a king, then he will become the wheel-turning king. He will exercise great power in many parts of the world, and everybody will be under his domain. And as soon as the dream was interpreted, and then Queen said, "Okay, that's it." And then she took very strict vows. She took very strict vows of chastity, of meditation, of probably a bit of fasting as well. I don't know exact nature of the vows, but she definitely retreated from her social life, and she wanted to really practice very well so that this baby during the pregnancy will grow very well and she will give birth and so on and so forth. So of course king was very, very happy. Shuddhodana was a big kingdom in the northern part of India, southern part of Nepal, a city called Kapilavastu. It's Kapilavastu, Tongkir in Tibetan. Anyway, so that's what we call the making first the observation from the Tushita, and then entering into the mother's womb. That's the second episode. And then third episode is the birth of the Buddha. Now the birth of the Buddha, his kingdom or city was Kapilavastu. And so when Queen Mayadevi was now progressing through her pregnancy, there was a lot of preparations happening and so on, and looking forward to the imminent birth of the royal child. But no one at those days knew that was that excited as going to be a monk or something. Your child is going to be monk or something. Nobody didn't really know what that meant. Of course he can become a monk, but not as a king's son. King's son got better things to do than become a monk. I mean, that's almost no area, because most people, people become monk when they really have a lot of setbacks in life. They have too much a harder life, and they just have no hope in materialism and relationship, in positions, in business, in whatever. They see all complete waste of energy, and they want to devote to spiritual practice. So people won't get that excited. Oh, he's going to be monk. That's great, isn't he? The king was head in the back. He said, hope he will not become a monk. Shuddhodana was probably a little bit more sort of, hope these soothsayers are not correct. Proved to be correct. Anyway, so this is what my interpretation is, and it's quite interesting. Anyway, towards the nearing the time of giving birth, usually babies give birth not soon after 9 months or a couple of weeks after that. I'm not exactly sure, but the Buddhas are. When Buddha is conceived in mother's womb, they say it necessarily would full 10 months, full 10 months. Doesn't get born before 10 months. So means it has to be complete 10 months as a sign of complete growth. So we are all prematurely born. That's our problem. Most prematurely born babies, even by relative terms, are considered a little bit. A lot of issues comes up. So particularly cesarean section and bringing them out a little more earlier than due, it has a lot of karmic kind of consequences. So Buddha was, Buddha's mother, Maya Devi. In those days, in Indian culture, the bride who is fall pregnant always used to go home, maternal home, to receive help from the mother to give birth. So therefore, they made preparation. She said to the king, "I want to go to visit my hometown, which is Devadaha." Devadaha and Kapilavastu is at least 3-4 days journey. So Devadaha is very east of Kapilavastu, and so she said, "I will visit my hometown, Devadaha, to give birth." And her mother, Queen Maya Devi's mother's name is Lumbini. And but there was a beautiful garden. There was I don't know whether her mother was alive or not. Probably not. But they have a tradition of going to give birth to mother's home. Anyway, so then Queen requested the king to go, that she be allowed to go home. Of course, king said, "If you want to go, we should go all together." So he said, "That makes a very big royal caravan." So they pull out all the horse cart, bullock carts, and put everything nice. And then they travel from Kapilavastu to go to Devadaha. That's a 3-4 days journey. On bullock cart, I will take a bit longer. These days, you can reach in 3 hours in car. The distance. And Lumbini, which is the garden named after Buddha's grandmother, situated right on the halfway. And they had no intention to give birth there or anything like that. It was just happened to be on the way. But because it still was a beautiful park, and that was made especially at the request of his grandmother, because grandmother, it is said, who lived in Devadaha as a little bit sort of elderly queen. She was also a queen in her own town. And then keep going to some rich neighbor's garden, And king said, "Why are you going there? People's house, you're the queen." He said, "I like their garden so much." So king said, "If you really want a garden, I can build one for you. Come on, it doesn't look good. You're drifting away some neighbor's place like this as a queen." So then the queen said, "Oh, that will be lovely. Can you please make one?" And then they made this special garden called Lumbini. Yeah, this was way before Maya Devi was even married. Anyway, so the garden was already there. And then, so Maya Devi and King Shuddhodana and the whole family was traveling on the way, and they rested in the Lumbini garden for a while. So the story has it that while they were taking a brief rest, all of a sudden the big kind of storm came, Big storm came, and the storm came, and then everybody was hurrying, and all of a sudden, all the gods has descended from the heavens, and they have put this special curtain around Queen Maya Devi, and everybody was not allowed to be nearby her. Why? All the gods has descended on earth. They have put amazing kind of quick makeshift curtain so that nobody will see. And then all of a sudden, Queen Maya Devi, she was just holding the tree, a branch of the tree, Palaksha. Palaksha is the name of the tree. And all of a sudden, miraculously, Buddha was born, While she's standing. They say it felt like she just came out of her armpit. Didn't feel like a normal labor pain. So they say Queen Maya Devi gave birth to the Prince Siddhartha, painlessly, without any labor pain. But all the gods came, and Brahma and Indra both came in beautiful satin clothes. He wanted to offer. Buddha said, no, let me go, because Brahma wanted to have the name. He said, I'm the one who first called him. And Buddha said, no, he wasn't allowed it. And Indra and Brahma, all the gods were there. They are able to do that. Anyway, as soon as Buddha was born, it was a miraculous birth because it didn't have any pain for the Queen Maya Devi, and it wasn't expected either. It was born, it was like quite a lot of babies are born, isn't it? Expected in a car or in the shopping mall or some amazing places. People are born these days. Anyway, so I was born on the full moon of May. So in this month, of course, full moon is the 23rd for you guys. That's what the world celebrate Vaisakh. World celebrate Vaisakh, the birthday of the Buddha, and later on he got enlightened on that day, and later on he passed away on that day. So there's very few people who were born on full moon on the same year, and the same year he got enlightened, and same year he passed away. So that's why the Vaisakh day is triple sacred day in Buddhist calendar. That's why Sagadawa in Tibetan, is a very, very sacred month. People usually take additional vows and prayers and practices, even in a normal time, let alone in a very difficult time the world is going through. So this coming month, starting on the 12th of May till the 12th of June, that is the whole Sakadawa month. So people usually take vows. Like quite a lot of people will take many, many different vows, do nyungne, do various practices. Some take occasional vows for that 30 days, or some just first 15 days, or others just a couple of days before, around the full moon day. And this is done because when Buddha was born, it is said that the whole world was illuminated by this amazing bright light. That usually full moon is pretty bright night anyway. Anyway, but he was born, and the world was whole lit and illuminated. And so the king Shuddhodana and his royal caravan had no intention to go further into Devadaha. Now they said, "This is it. We will return home." Return home, because they didn't want to go further. Yeah, and then of course when Buddha was born, he walked, firstly facing towards 7 steps. He doesn't allow the Devas and Indra and Brahma to touch him. He walked. As soon as he touched his feet on the ground, a lotus feet sprang. Wherever he touched, the lotus feet sprang. So, and that way he said words each direction towards which he's walking, to the east, and then the south, and then the west, and finally the north. In the end, he says, "This is my last birth," and he will be enlightened. I'm the supreme, excellent one, and this is my last. So he proclaimed that he's the enlightened one already. And of course, during that time of his birth, all the devas, nagas, yakshas, rakshas, deities, all those spiritual beings, all have completely descended upon, and completely inadvertently all that happened. And coinciding that, there were 4 great kingdoms in India. Each of the 4 great kings' queen also gave birth to a royal child, And all of these 4 royal child, like Sravasti and Magadha and Kosala, and all of those kings, their sons were all named after this bright light. And they all thought it was greatness of them. that the light was so bright, and so they gave name Prasenajit and so on, always named after light, named after that bright light, They didn't know it was due to the birth of the Buddha, coinciding that these 4 kings are going to be very important people to play a very significant role in the life of the Buddha and Buddhism in general. They all have shared karma, merit to be born on such a day. And not only that, his future wife, Yashodhara, as well as his future attendant, Kantaka, all were born on that very same day. So many unimaginable things happen on that day. This was also found out later, of course. And then the King Kapilavastu, as a kingdom, discovered many treasures. Treasures just appear on the ground. You don't even have to mine. These days you have to take years of geological research before you can find a mine, and then go digging miles down. And if you can dig out some coal, it would be very lucky. No, during that time, in the Kapilavastu kingdom, the king discovered so many treasures, and all the fightings between people will just become peaceful. Everybody make peace. Many sick become well. All kinds of unimaginable, miraculous things happen, and king couldn't believe. And then, as soon as he was born, and there was a saint called Asita. This saint Asita was dwelling far in the Himalayas, meditating. And the light, when his Buddha was born, light was lit in his hermitage as well. And he could foresee, because he was a hermit. He's a wise man. He can see. And he cried. And his nephew was his caretaker. He said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "I'm not crying for anything, but I could really laugh and celebrate for the world, but I'm crying for myself." He said, "Why?" "Today, an enlightened one was born in the Kapilavastu in Lumbini, and I'm true, meritless, that I could not live long enough to hear his teachings. That's why I'm crying." They said, "But the world will be very lucky to receive such an enlightened one." So he told his nephew that, and then of course he was very famous. Asita was very famous saint and all of that. Anyway, to just go back to the Lumbini story. So Lumbini is, you should know, as a Buddhist people about life of the Buddha, the birthplace of Buddha is his grandmother's garden, named his grandmother's name, and therefore Buddha's mother happened to go there on her road to Devadaha, but accidentally born there. And then when he was born, the gods offer holy water. After Buddha finished walking 7 steps each direction, he proclaimed he's the supreme one in the world. Then the gods, they offer water, and Queen Maya Devi washed and so on. And because, giving birth is not an easy thing. They didn't have all these midwives running around with uniforms and all that. It's in the middle of a paddock, The birth happened in the middle of a paddock. It's just the miraculous lotus just sprang up, but otherwise it's a pretty barren land, really. Anyway, so then the gods offer water. And then they changed the plan. Instead of going forward, now they decide to go backwards, back to the city, back to the Kapilavastu. So if you travel these days, Kapilavastu is only 12 miles. 12 miles from Lumbini, 12 miles, which is about 20 kilometers. 20 kilometers. Bad road still. The bad road still. It still takes a good grueling hour. In Australia, you would get there in 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes, like coming from Belconnen to here. 20 minutes, Anyway. Then the king and the caravan traveled from Lumbini towards to Kapilavastu, and each town and villages, because they're all the subjects of the kingdom, they're so delighted to see their king having a royal child passing through that, and so on, so forth. and they were received with the God. Unfortunately speaking, one of the tragedy of this birth of the Buddha is his mother Mahadevi died in 1 week after he was born. So that's difficult, isn't it? Very difficult. Anyway, so what did the king do? And then in those days, so he's now orphan, He's got king, but he's got no mother. And so then they hurriedly brought back his auntie, Prajapati Gautami. Prajapati Gautami is the second daughter. Second daughter was brought in to. So basically, she married because she became the queen, second queen, and then to look after him. So Prajapati Gautami is very important, who became later on the first Buddhist nun. But we have to know she deserved that because she suffered so much, having to not suffer so much, but she had the honor to mother, to be the wet nurse mother without being the biological mother. But nevertheless, she had other 25 women to help her to look after the baby. These 25 ladies are all different titles, different jobs. They do different things. They did different things to care for them. She doesn't have to physically do anything because she's still the queen, But she still have to be the officially she has to stand in as the mother, Sukye Gutamo in Tibet. Su means step as a mother, what we call auntie. She's an auntie, but she's a really stepmother type of thing. It's more than auntie. She became the second mother basically because Buddha was so small, and then they had a special ceremony in Lumbini, not in Kapilavastu, by the way, by Kapilavastu. And then just imagine, I was wondering how the importance of Lumbini was therefore doubled. Before it was a beautiful garden, now birthplace of the Buddha, and so it was doubled the importance of the place. Yeah, but still he's not Buddha yet, so he's not quite. He's a birthplace of the Siddhartha, but not quite birthplace of the Buddha because he hasn't become Buddha yet. He hasn't become Buddha yet, and the king had no intention to let him become a monk. He wanted him to raise as a royal child and become a very important military person, because in those days king meant the commander-in-chief. The king was always the commander-in-chief of the military force. Even in some kingdoms it's like that. The king always dresses up as the highest military ranking person. And of course, Prince Siddhartha. And then the naming ceremony came, naming ceremony. So we have to understand why he was given this name Siddhartha, or why was he given the word Shakyamuni, So Shakyamuni, Siddhartha are the two childhood names. How did he get them? Firstly, Siddhartha was first. The father, Shuddhodana, discovered this amazing, wonderful things happen in his country that never happened before. So many wondrous things happen, and therefore he wanted to give him the name Siddhartha. Siddhartha, meaning the fully accomplished the meanings. He accomplished all the meanings. He's spiritual, temporal, all the fightings, discover so many treasures, so many things happen. So he gave the name Tundrup in Tibetan, Yalbu Tundrup. Tibetan Tundrup means Siddhartha, meaning become a meaningful accomplishment to have such a royal child. So Siddhartha was the name given because king achieved many spiritual and temporal wishes, and so on. And then to mark the naming ceremony, they invited all the wise people, and then one of the many wise people who came was Asita. Asita was brought in, and Asita did the same thing when he entered in the royal palace. And when he lay his eyes to see the royal baby, he cried again. He cried again. He cried again. Before he was only seeing through his foreknowledge what is the world going to be benefited from this birth. Now he's actually looking at the real physical child, and he could see all the 112 marks of an amazing being, all the hand and webbed fingers, webbed toes, and there were so many distinct physical features in the Buddha's the royal child body that others couldn't see, but he could see all of them. And then he cried again. And the king said, "Why are you crying?" He was worried. He's worried. This wise man looking at his child crying. He says, "What's a bad sign?" He goes, "What's the thing?" And then again he has to tell the king, "No, I'm not crying because there's anything." Because when they looked at the baby, it has so many physical features that looks like a deformed. You can call it deformed because if you webbed finger child, what if you do if you give birth to a webbed finger child? You'll be, "Oh, what's this one? Is this a duck or what? Half duck, half human?" So there were lots of physical features, and that most people can't see because he was pretty much wrapped up, but the royal Asita he held in his hand. If you see some of the Buddhist movies, and these Indians have nowadays made a lot of movies on life of the Buddha, and some of the drawings, you can see this wise man, long white beard, holding this baby, looking like this. That's him, Asita. And Asita said, "Oh, I'm not crying because of, this is amazing. This is going to be fully enlightened one." The king was saying, "What the hell are you talking about?" King is the Asita is now foretelling that this is going to be fully enlightened one, and he's going to teach the world the Dharma. And so he was very happy, but he's himself not going to live long enough to hear the teaching. So he's crying because of that, from joy and sadness and a mixture of this both, And then king said, "Why are you crying?" He says, No, I'm not crying anything. This is because I won't be able to hear him teach. He will going to become a mendicant and become enlightened." There wasn't a question of, if he becomes, he will become. Previously it was prophesied he may become. If he becomes a monk, he will be enlightened. If he stays the king, he will become a very powerful king. That was the prediction. Now he says he will. King said, "That's ridiculous. What the hell are you talking about?" So King said, "Look, still I have to make sure that he doesn't go any direction to be influenced by anyone to become a monk. I have to make sure that he was brought up accordingly to bring up as a royal child, successfully trained and educated in civil how to run the country, in military, and whatever the things that you need to do." And king was very reluctant to have any spiritual influence from anybody, but given the name Siddhartha. And so they celebrated his birth. And Buddha had 4 uncles. He had 4 uncles. These uncles are all brothers. Brothers of his father. I don't think he had any maternal uncle. There's nobody mentioned in the text, but there were at least 4 paternal uncles. These paternal uncles are very significant individuals. Later on, these paternal uncles are going to father Ananda, Devadatta, and Mahanama, and quite a few of them. The Buddha had quite a few cousins as a result of his uncle's son. They all follow later on. Anyway, so what happened? As a result of Buddha sort of being born in Lumbini and then kept home, and the naming ceremony was given, and the holy saint Asita prophesied that he will become an enlightened, and then they brought Prajapati Gautami from Devadaha to look after, raise the royal child. And king therefore appointed many, 16 or so, what we call tutors, to teach different things, different arts. You can call it, you can call it medicine, you can call it linguistic, you can call it arts, you can call it, physics, you can call it archery, you can call it swimming, you can call it various aspects of the worldly trainings. 16 teachers were appointed to train Siddhartha. But Siddhartha, as a young, gifted child, was learning so fast that the teachers have to barely introduce the topic. He would master all of their knowledge. They couldn't teach him anymore because he just learned so fast. He hardly needs to teach, And so they all were become nearly jobless. But of course they were all employed still, but all felt like they couldn't. They feel very, 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 very reluctant to do any teaching because they can't teach. He knows everything. He knows everything. And then, when there were some plowing festivals, there's still very farming land. Even the kings have much of their income came from farming and taxes they collect from the subjects. And during the plowing season, everybody will go to the farm and plow, and even the kids will do some work or play or whatever. But when the Siddhartha went to the plowing field, he would never do anything. He would just sit there under a tree in meditation, in meditation. And they all nicknamed him Shakyamuni. Shakyamuni means he's the sage of the Shakyas. He's acting like a saint. Even as a small boy, he was always doing that, And so they call him Shakyamuni because Shakyamuni is not official name, but because he was always acting like a saint. Muni means saint, and Shakya is the name of the family. This is the saint of the Shakyas. So he earned the name Shakyamuni even before he became enlightened, even as a royal child. So the birth of the Buddha in Lumbini, and his Lumbini on the full moon May is celebrated in a very big way in Lumbini itself. Even though the politics of Lumbini would have gone through many, many changes, you wouldn't believe the locals celebrate the full moon of May as Vaisakh. But Buddhist people think it's a Vaisakh, but the local people think they are celebrating Vaisakh to honor the Buddha's grandmother. So they celebrate the celebration in Lumbini to honor the goddess Lumbini. Goddess Lumbini. So locals call up the name of her and say, victory, hail, Rumende. They go Rumende. Locals call Rumendehi, but actually Lumbini. They call her. They think that when she died, the Queen Lumbini died, she was born as a tree spirit. She was born as a spirit in the garden because she's so attached. That's what people usually happen. When people die, they're usually born whatever they're attached to, So she became a tree spirit. She became the first greenie. She became the greenie spirit. And locals, there are some very huge trees. They all go and put many, many banners and flowers on the tree on the Vaisakh day. They all... A lot of them know it's Buddha's birthplace, but they really come to worship the tree because Buddha was born, and they think it's born under that tree. That tree was his grandmother. That's interesting, yeah. The locals are Hindus, and some are Muslims. Not a single one Buddhist. If you go to Lumbini, when I lived there 12 years, there's not a single Buddhist there. All are Hindus, and you don't see them usually at all as a worshipping or practicing. But once a year they all come together, and they all come to worship the tree. And when do they come? On the full moon of the May, which is the birthday of the Buddha. So they have kept this calendar all throughout these ages. They come to celebrate the tree under which Buddha was born. And that tree, of course, that tree would have gone through many changes. The tree that was there until, say, in early 1990s, it was a huge tree, huge tree. And then later on, the Lumbini Development Project has dug up the tree, excavated everything around it. You know what they did? It's a terrible thing. They sold the tree to Japan, Can you believe it? That's what the Nepalese are. They just don't know how to honor such a holy place. They sold the tree. They call Purattattu Vibhag. Purattattu Vibhag is the archaeological department. They have only scientific interests. They have only scientific interest. What kind of bricks you can find under the tree that they could date, making sure that they how early the bricks were, and so on. That interest, and then of course Japanese would pay anything, even for a little handful of dust from Lumbini, let alone for a whole tree. So they sold the tree to Japan. And they would have got millions for that. Anyway, the tree got dug up, uprooted, and they found so many layers of bricks built in a construction that the archaeologists have been dating. And they actually found the exact spot where the Buddha's feet first touched. And they have a particular kind of little bit of mark. And when you go now to Lumbini, they have made a makeshift kind of temple. When you go in there, they have dug up the root of the trees a couple of maybe 6-7 meters below the surface of the ground, and then they say that's where he touched the feet. Right now, that's what kept. And then about 20 meters on the northwest side of that stand Ashoka pillar, the pillar of King Ashoka. King Ashoka is the 1st century AD Indian king, Indian emperor, who was very famous as a ruthless king. Ruthless king who murdered all his brothers, who murdered anyone who put opposition to him, let alone his actual opponents from other countries, and he became the most powerful king. But later on, he met the 4th successor to the Buddha, Venerable Upagupta, and Upagupta's teaching converted the King Ashoka into Buddhism. And so that's why in Indian Buddhist history, or Buddhist history generally, need to know the role of Ashoka. And these days, when you go on pilgrimage like Lumbini or Bodh Gaya or wherever Buddhist site, there you will see a remnant, if not an actual standing Ashoka pillar. These Ashoka pillars were erected in 1st century, all of them. You can see all sandstone buildings, sandstone pillars, columns that are dug up maybe 20-30 meters below the ground. If the pillar is 20 meters tall, the much is still underground. So you can, and there are inscriptions on that pillar stating this is the place of the birthplace of the Buddha. And when he came to pay respect to Lumbini, after now this is first century means this is roughly like 400 years after Buddha passed away, and after he came, and then what did he do? He put this inscription on the pillar saying this is the birthplace of Buddha. All the locals should look after it, protect it from damage, and he will waive their tax. Waive the tax for looking after the place. That's written on the pillar, So that shows that in those days, that place, Lumbini, was under his reign, He was such a powerful. In those days, borders between countries like Nepal, India probably didn't exist, Those are so many small principalities. That's why in the older history, they say Buddha was born in Lumbini, but they think it's in India, historically. But of course, these days, it's not. If you look at that, there's only 9 kilometers north of the border is Lumbini. That's in Nepal, not in India. So in the 1800s, when they excavated and rediscovered Lumbini, and then Nepal had to make a big effort to prove that Buddha was born in Nepal. But Indian side has already found another rival place, saying that's the Lumbini. So another 20 kilometers on the other side of the border, there is a fake Lumbini. fake Lumbini, because the Indians don't want to recognize Buddha was born in Nepal, even though it is right now. They realize this land swap during the British Raj was a big mistake. There was a land swap, land swap between the British rulers and the Nepalese. The British who were ruling in India, particularly in Calcutta, very hot. All India very hot, Summer was dreadful, so they wanted to go and live somewhere cold, and so they exchanged land, but Darjeeling and Kalimpong, that area was all Nepalese, Nepal. So Nepal just gave them away, and they took the Terai instead. But that time it looked like a big sort of bargain. But later on, it was a good win. So Nepal side actually won this completely unrecognized empty land. When Lumbini was discovered in the 1800, the pillar of the Ashoka was only a couple of meters above the ground. Not the full length right now. Right now it has been excavated. Then you can see it's almost like two-story high. But when they first discovered, it was only a couple of meters above the ground. It was all underground, Anyway, that's because of the over 2,000 years, anything could happen, isn't it? So many changes, and people forgot Lumbini as Lumbini, let alone as the birthplace of Buddha. Only people like Tibetans and Chinese and Japanese, all the foreign Buddhist devotees, they have written in the book that's Lumbini, but they hardly get to go there, The locals all become themselves swamped by Muslim invasion. India itself become swamped by Muslim invasion, so all the Buddhist and Hindu major temples were all destroyed by the Muslim, and together with that, all the Buddhist sites suffered, just like all the Hindu sites, because Muslim invasion. They burned the whole Nalanda University in India. For 20 years it was burning, they say. It was burning, and destroyed. And so that's why they couldn't deface the whole landscape of history, where there were buildings and columns and things like that. Anyway, so Lumbini is nowadays undeniably recognized as the birthplace of Buddha and is in Nepal. But in the old histories, it doesn't really say Buddha was born in Nepal. And that's why recent couple of years ago, there was a big controversy saying, Buddha was born in Nepal, not in India. When he saw this Dalai Lama made some remarks, all this Nepalese people got really, really upset, saying that Buddha was born in Nepal, not in India, and sort of thing. Of course, in all history books, it's a different matter. But today, of course, definitely is in Lumbini. And Nepal should look after Lumbini and protect it from being forgotten and neglected under the soil otherwise. Now, since the first, I must tell you this, the first ever Buddhist United Nations Secretary General was a Burmese. This Burmese Secretary General called Mr. Uthant was a Secretary General of the United Nations in the 1960s, And he was the only Buddhist that ever became Secretary General of the United Nations. And then, of course, he having make diplomatic relations to all the countries, he got an invitation from the Nepalese King Mahindra to visit Nepal. And of course, Uthant, he had no really plan to go there for Lumbini. Nepal is not a great contributor to the United Nations Fund. But as soon as he got invited, he straight away said, yes, I will. So then King Mahindra was really good on him. King Mahindra invited Uthant, and Uthant was flown in a helicopter to visit Lumbini. Lumbini had this very tiny, small temple built in 1956. During which India celebrated the 2500th anniversary of Buddha's enlightenment in India, 1956. This is just barely after 9 years after India got independence. India hosted the biggest birthday of the Buddha. And during that, they invited all the heads of the states, even Dalai Lama and Panchen Lama, both as that time head of the state. That time Tibet was still not invaded by China. And then as this was happening, Indian government was really thoughtful. As a part of the celebration was held mostly in Delhi, but after that they made a tour of all the heads of state around the four main Buddhist sites. And Lumbini was in Nepal. And they made this small train route all the way reaching to the Indian border, Naugar. You can actually go by train up till then. Then from there you have to travel another 20 kilometers by road. And Indian government built a road from the border all the way to Lumbini. And Nepalese government, even though those days was really not enough, they built a small Buddhist temple in anticipation to receive all these international guests. And so Lumbini barely had this. Ashoka pillar was excavated, and there was a small Newari temple was built, and 1 or 2 monks were there, and that's it. And the Dalai Lama visited there, only a young man. Then in 1956, he was very young, he was probably 15 or something, 35. He was born in 35, so 35, 56. Yeah, he's 21. He's 21 years old, and Panchen Lama was probably a couple of years younger than him, and a big official party from everywhere came to visit it. And King of Nepal, Mahendra, knew that Lumbini was so important and need to do something. He invited U Thant to Nepal, but U Thant said, "I want to go to Lumbini." and then Mahendra said, "What? Lumbini is such a small village. What are we going to do? How are we going to host this amazing in the United Nations Secretary General?" And then U Thant, they made a big preparation, and as soon as U Thant visited with the King of Nepal, he couldn't believe his eyes. He cried, it's told. He was so sad how neglected Lumbini was. It didn't have even a decent temple. The birthplace of Buddha was manned by these 2 Hindu men, who was the caretaker, but there was not even any Buddhist in there. There was just a Hindu old man. He was very diligent. He was doing his thing, but not that, he was telling the stories, and he was doing just as good as anybody could do. But place was so neglected. But there stood this immaculate pillar of Ashoka, stating what this place represents. And then Secretary General U Thant made a promise to set up the Lumbini Development Project. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? King of Nepal, Mahendra, of course, built a special pillar of his pillar just down the road, his pillar as well, because to share that he also cares. And anyway, so Lumbini Development Project was formed, and now if you go, to Lumbini, it has become a big, amazing. There are, I think it's 1 kilometer wide and 3 kilometers long. Land was purchased around the Ashoka pillar, and whole first square kilometer was designated as a garden. That's all around the Ashoka pillar and the birthplace of Buddha, and the rest of them were allocated to build monastery from various different countries and traditions. So there's nearly 30 monasteries now there. When you go to Lumbini, it's now every country has a small, some of them are very big. Big monastery with a half a dozen monks from each. Even People's Republic of China built a very nice temple, because they can afford very big temple, and of course Burmese, of Sri Lankans, and there's half a dozen Tibetan monasteries. They all built under different organizations of Nepal. But there is no real actual Tibetan monastery allocated to His Holiness Dalai Lama or anything like that, because Nepal's government is a little bit sort of sensitive to and from being upsetting their biggest brother. But anyway, Lumbini now is unrecognizably a Buddhist kind of a sacred, not only site, but beautiful garden, all the countries pour lots of money to build. Nowadays, it has also got a Buddhist university, and so it's really, really enlivened by the very great effort of Secretary General U Thant from Burma. And that is, of course, King of Nepal, Mahendra, who was an amazing man during his time, was able to invite him to his country, and then all of a sudden the guests want to go there, and then this accidentally then completely made the importance of Lumbini was not forgotten, and now it is really on the map of the world. So with this we will conclude here today this talk on the first three episodes of Buddha's life, Buddha's conception and the birth, and as well as his observation to choose the mother and so on. So we will continue next week. Thank you, everybody. Anybody got pressing question? Please do. I wanted to tell the life of Buddha because all these Buddhist people, particularly Tibetan tradition, they're so caught up in their little traditions. They all talk about their lamas and their saint and their teachers of the last 6th century or 7th century. They don't talk about the Buddha at all, So which is very big loss, And that's why Buddhism is very fragmented, because people don't go back to the Buddha. We should go back to the Buddha and make all the lineages, traditions show respected, but not talk about their teachers all the time, their miracles. They don't talk about the history of the Buddha. The story of the Buddha is Buddhism. Later on, of course, we wouldn't have much time, but each of the teachings Buddha gave occurred because Buddha gave those teachings. People went and met him, and then he gave the teachings. People brought a lot of stories, a lot of problems in the personal life, whatever, and the Buddha gave teachings, and all the teachings become sutras. Sutras means discourses. They're written down. And if there are no teachings that are not connected with life of the Buddha, if you hear about life of the Buddha, then you will actually comprehend whole Buddhism. So Buddha was a human being, and we have only today touched his birth, and so a little bit of education, but later on you will see how he completely transformed and became the great ambassador of peace, not only then, but even today, real strategy for peace is controlling one's own mind and its discrepancies by listening and meditating and reflecting and transforming our attitudes. And that is the really gist of the Buddha's teachings. Okay, thank you very much. We will conclude here today. Oh, by this mere me ho the diva may I liberate from the ocean of Buddha descended here in the Mahayana teaching. Whatever merit I have, may hobby becomes the levels to the Mahayana teaching. Courage, manjushin your wording. Zama Tabadra life following over the example. I shall go the matter, made excellent body, Jeda, Taba, Verana Yaras, where has been bombed. Freely without generation. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.